What is going on, gunfighters? Today, a more somber, serious episode. Use of deadly force. Who, what, when, where, why, how. Again, a somber topic. Today on Gunfighter Life, where we talk about guns, gunfighting tactics, use of force. Today, use of deadly force. The right way with Almighty God at the center. Judeo-Christian values and real-world first-hand experience. I feel like I should in this episode put in the bio, so I'm going to. If you've heard it, you can skip around 2 minutes, so you got a 30-second fast forward, that's 4 times. While you're fast forwarding, or hopefully you'll like, subscribe, leave a review of the podcast. Share it with somebody you think may glean from it. Blessings are meant to be shared. With that, the bio, then the main topic. I'll roll into a quick abbreviated bio and then into the main topic. First and foremost, I am a Christian. I don't apologize for that. God is number one in my life. I grew up hunting and fishing in the backwoods of the southeastern United States at a very early age. Some of my earliest memories are with firearms. I joined the Marine Corps at 17, did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. By God's grace, He got me through that safely. After that, I served as an instructor, an urban warfare instructor and a desert warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps. I also served with the LAPD, both full-time as a sworn police officer and some more specialized assignments, as well as serving in the U.S. Army, full-time and part-time National Guard. I've been a FBI firearms instructor, still am an FBI firearms instructor, have been for a lot of years, also NRA certified and some other 3-letter government agency certified. I've been a private contractor for a 3-letter government agency I won't specify. I've been the commander of a tactical team in a large metropolitan area. By God's grace, He got me through all that in one piece, not because I'm better, but because He chose to have grace and mercy on me. I've been a professional hunter and guide. Professionally hunted things like buffalo and elk. Not many people today can say they've done that, but I'm blessed to be able to say that I have. I've hunted everything from white-tailed deer on the East Coast to mule deer on the West Coast to gray squirrel on the East Coast to prairie dog on the West Coast and elk and bear and wolf and slain all manner of beast. A state rifle and pistol champion a few times over in a few different disciplines. Now those experiences, it's not because I'm bigger or badder, certainly not bigger. In fact, I met one of the patrons in real life and he said something to the effect of, "I thought you'd be bigger." Reminded me of that William Wallace movie where he's like, "Oh yeah, if William Wallace were here, he'd shoot lightning bolts out of his rear end." Well, I'm not William Wallace, but I am the person that did all those things in the bio. But not because I'm bigger or badder. I don't think that I survived when many other young, good men did not. I give all the glory and all the credit to God, all the talents and experiences that He's given me and the things that He's let me live through. I hope to use them to glorify God and to help you today. So if I boast in anything, it's not in my strength, it's in that God had mercy on me and saved me because He had a purpose for me. And hopefully I can use those talent, skills, and abilities to serve you today. Couple of caveats. Super technical legal disclaimer. If you kill somebody you weren't supposed to, if you shoot somebody, including yourself, that you're not supposed to, that's your fault. That's not my fault. Anything that I'm going to give you, you need to check whether that applies to you or not. Now, the law of God stuff obviously applies to everybody, whether you like it or not. But laws vary from state to state, municipality, jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So double check what is legal or not in your area. That being said, one of the things I learned in my life as a professional gunfighter is just because you legally can shoot somebody and you be totally legally justified to shoot somebody, to kill somebody, doesn't mean that you necessarily should, even if you're legally justified to do so. There have been many occasions where I could have been completely legally justified to shoot somebody, and I chose not to in that instance, and I never regretted those decisions. Because the ultimate law is the law of God. One day every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess. We will give an account of ourselves, things done. And the Bible says in the New Testament we will be judged according to our works. Now, with that, there are very clear instances in the Bible and the Word of God where deadly force is authorized, even prescribed. And this gets into the whole Sixth Commandment debate. You shall not murder. And that's a good translation, you shall not murder. You shall not kill is not a great translation because it obviously prescribes killing several places in the Bible as a penalty. But murder with malice aforethought, with evil intent, is wrong. Killing is not always wrong, for it is written, if a man is caught breaking in and is struck so that he dies, there shall be no guilt for his bloodshed. Also, if a man sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. So first and foremost, before anything, you have to make sure that you're using force, especially deadly force. Taking a human life is a weighty, heavy matter. And I would say look at it less like I can and more like I have to. Now I'm going to talk about some more obscure ones to knock them out, things you might use deadly force for. And that is protection of some property. And you might think that doesn't make any sense. But I have had jobs with the government where some property was so dangerous if it got out, it could potentially cause massive loss of human life. Somebody stealing a nuclear bomb, you don't know where they're going. If they get away, they're just going to disappear with a nuclear device. Is deadly force justified there? You have to think about that. And again, I'm going to knock that one out quickly because that usually doesn't apply to most people. If you're doing that kind of job, then you probably know what your parameters are. Another one would be fleeing felon. And that doesn't mean somebody's running off with your big screen TV. That doesn't mean somebody wrote you a bad check and they're getting away. Fleeing felon, a lot of criteria have to be met. And this is generally a law enforcement thing, but that you're dealing with somebody you know to be a dangerous felon, like a serial killer, and you know who it is, like John Smith, and you went to school with John Smith, and you know John Smith, and he's killed a bunch of people, and you have reason to believe if he gets away, he's going to kill more people, and you have an opportunity to take him out. You can't reasonably take him into custody. He's like getting away. That's a fleeing felon kind of deal there. Again, not germane to most people most of the time. If a man is caught breaking in and is struck so that he dies, there shall be no guilt for his bloodshed. Home invasions are a real thing. That biblical law goes back thousands of years, but if somebody's breaking into your home, you don't know what nefarious purpose they have on their mind. It may just be to take stuff. They may be drunk and think it's their house. They just be trying to take your stuff all the way to they want to kill you and or use you or somebody else in your family's body without their consent and then kill you or whatever order you want. Really, really nasty, twisted stuff. And that's stuff that happens in the real world. Home invasions are a real thing. Go look up home invasion numbers in the U.S. versus like house fires. And I think you will be alarmed. So if somebody's breaking into your house, at night, you're in bed, and again, you got to check your whatever, and check the situation. Use your best judgment at the time, but again, it is written, if a thief is caught breaking in and is struck so that he dies, there shall be no guilt for his bloodshed. And as much as a lot of modern people may not like this, our country was founded as a Judeo-Christian nation. It was founded on Judeo-Christian principles and Judeo-Christian laws and judicial system. You'll see that echoed in many of our laws and statutes. Like I was reading the state's penal code, and I literally saw that it was verbatim, word for word, like an example from the Bible. That's awesome. But there is absolute truth in morals and ethics, and we are a Judeo-Christian culture based on Judeo-Christian values. That said, some places have strayed far from that, so you should, again, do your due diligence on that. But there is an example, and the clearest example is to prevent further loss of human life. Your life, or the life of somebody else, right? Because you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Hopefully you view your neighbor's life, your friend's life, your brother's life, and a bystander's life as equal value to your own life. And I've heard other people make statements like, "Oh, I'm just going to protect myself. Everybody else is on their own. If I see somebody shooting, I'm just going to leave." That ain't me. And I don't know how that's you shall love your neighbor as yourself if you're standing idly by while somebody takes the life of your neighbor and you could do something about it. Why is your life any greater value than their life? So, the big one for most people, the preservation of life by taking a life. You stopping that person because they are actively taking human life, or they're about to. It is reasonable and prudent to believe that that person is about to take human life, and you are stepping in to prevent that. And it's not a gun thing, it's not a firearms thing, it shouldn't be a left-right thing, it shouldn't be any of that. You are stepping in to use what means you need to stop that person from taking human life. I've used this example before in past episodes, but I'll use it again. Right? I've been blessed to be a very good handgun shooter. God's given me that talent and skill and ability, and I try to hone that. To he who has more shall be given, and he will have an abundance. I go healed most of the time, right? Pretty much everywhere I go armed. Because how bad would that be if I was in one of those situations and I didn't have the tools to intercede? But let's say that I'm in, let's just say, a movie theater. I rarely go to the movies. But let's say I'm at a movie theater. A lot of people go to movies, you can probably picture it. It's a crowded place with a lot of people. And an active shooter pops off, and they just start taking human life. You know, every second. Bam, human life. Bam, human life. Bam, human life. Is the most loving thing I can do just sit there and suck my thumb, curl up in a fetal position? Is that the most loving thing I can do? Is the most loving thing I can do just go out the exit because I'm close and everybody else is on their own? Or is the most loving thing that I can do stop that person from doing what they're doing and prevent them from taking more human life? I would submit that's the most loving thing that I can do in that scenario, is step in and intercede. The gun is just a tool that I have, and it's the best one that I can have at the time. If for some reason I didn't have a gun, hopefully I would have the courage to face that armed assailant without a gun, but it greatly increases my chances of being effective. And that's all the firearm is. Don't idolize firearms. Don't put them up on a pedestal. It is a tool to project force. You can use it for good purposes or use it for bad purposes. But it is a tool to project force. Use of deadly force is use of deadly force. Whether you use a rock or a knife or a gun or any number of other things, right? It's the use of deadly force. It just so happens that in the year of our Lord 2024, pretty much the most effective means of projecting force that we can have us conveniently most of the time is a handgun. So that's what usually gets used. But that's the big one that you're going to run into. Using force to stop somebody from taking a life, yours or somebody else's. That's the big one. That's the vast majority. And again, you're going to have to answer for that. So you had better be sure. And there's a a lot of minutia and stuff, and I talk about that a lot on this show. You guys probably know that, but there's a lot of minutia on this caliber versus that caliber, and how many rounds and how much capacity and all that stuff. But here's the thing: you are shooting to stop that. Scratch that. You are interjecting yourself into the situation to stop those bad actions of that nefarious person. If you present a gun, you have reasonable belief that they're about to take a life, and you present a gun, and they stop doing the bad thing, drop their gun, and surrender, the amount of actual force you had to use was zero. Just the fact that you stood up to them was enough. I wouldn't count on that. I wouldn't carry a replica handgun just because that might happen. I wouldn't carry a .22 Derringer because, well, I'm just going to present a gun and they're just going to give up. That would be great. That way you don't have to take a life. They're not taking human life. Situation's over. You get what I'm saying. But how much force you're going to have to project greatly depends on the situation that you're in. There's a lot of different reasons that people stop. That one is they don't want to get shot. Another one is they get shot once somewhere, even if it's not a really effective hit, not an effective caliber, not an effective hit, and they just decide, that hurts, I'm taking my ball and going home. Right? You didn't have to actually even kill that person. You just made them rethink their life choices, and they decide, I no longer want to continue down the path that I'm on. I'm going to repent. That's metanoia. They changed their mind on what they're doing, and they decide to not do that bad thing at that time. It may take several rounds for them to get to that same conclusion. They may get a shot a couple of times, and although it's not fatal, they decide, this really is not going the way that I thought it was going to go, and I'm done. Now, you could also have a very determined attacker. One, because of just their literally crazy. Like, they have a mental illness. And people with mental illnesses can be super dangerous. I feel for people with mental illness. I'm not putting down people with mental illness, but somebody that's super violent and homicidal with a mental illness is just as homicidal as a person that's not. That's a real thing. Another big one we have to deal with today is drugs, right? Drugs can greatly alter somebody's mental, physical state. And that may require a lot of force to stop somebody. Or had to deal with somebody on some pretty dangerous narcotics, which I have. They play by different rules than most normal people. So that's a thing you may have to deal with. Another one is just crackpot ideology. I wouldn't even say Muslim extremists. I would say Muslims that want to kill Christians, and they will do it to the death because they think they're going to get a bunch of virgins. That may not be politically correct to say, but if you're looking for politically correct, go listen to some other show. The whole TV, I don't even have a TV, but most of TV is just woke garbage, Disneyland, hugging bunnies and rainbows, garbage ideology. If you came here for that, go listen to something else. Like, there are Muslims out there that want to kill you, and they've got their mind set on it, and they're going to do it until you kill them. It's not the only ideology, but that's the predominant one that we deal with today. Again, not politically correct, but true. So deal with it. But in those cases, you're probably going to have to use quite a bit of force to stop that threat. A physical stop. And there are several ways that you can accomplish that. Again, people can give up prematurely, which would be working out to people's benefit. But if that doesn't happen, stop somebody based on blood loss, which can take a while, but it can happen. You get a leak in the hydraulic system, and after a while, there's just no more power. The mechanism just can't keep moving because there's literally no hydraulic pressure. There's no blood pressure. They literally bleed out. It could take a while. Exsanguination. That's been a while since I took Latin. Yeah, exsanguinate. That's the right word. To bleed out. To exsanguinate. That's a thing. That's a way you can stop somebody. It can take a while. Another one is Structural damage. Often not talked about, but it absolutely can be a thing. Right? You break somebody, shatter somebody's pelvis, and they can't stand. And they were attacking with a knife. You shatter their pelvis. As long as you can get more than arm's length away, they're pretty much not a threat anymore, right? You did enough structural damage that they are no longer a threat. They are no longer actively taking human life because you cracked their frame. They're no longer able to stand. They're not ambulatory. They can't walk. As long as you can walk faster than they can crawl, then you're probably good to go. Another one are major organs. You put a hole in both lungs, probably fighting as long as they can hold their breath before they black out, which can be a while, but that is definitely a way. There are other vital organs that can stop somebody pretty quick. Liver hits, things like that. Liver, lungs, and especially, obviously, heart. It's a small target, but you can certainly hit that and take somebody out of the fight pretty quick. The fastest way is a central nervous system hit, which is going to be your brain stem and your spinal cord. That's like a lights out, like flipping the switch. That is your fastest way. It's also a very small target. With that, so how many rounds are you going to have to fire to get this job done? It varies wildly. You're shooting to stop that person from doing what they're doing. Right? If they stop on round 0, then the number is 0. If they stop on round 2, then the number is 2. If they stop on round 30, then the number is 30. With that being said, what are some useful drills that you can do? You should practice a variety. You should practice how fast you can get out and get 1 hit on target. You should practice how fast you can get out and get 2 hits on target at varying distances. Don't give me that 3 rounds, 3 seconds, 3 yards garbage. If you want to train for the bare minimum, if you want to train for averages, go listen to somebody else. Be better than average. But train getting your gun out and getting it into action, getting a hit on target quickly. Practice getting your gun out and getting multiple hits on target quickly at different distances. It is very difficult and it is a hard thing to master, but it's simple. Get your gun out, get a hit on target. Get your gun out, get 2 hits on target. And 3 hits and 4 hits and 5 hits and 6 hits. Bill drill is a thing for a reason. Now you should reassess if you have time in the moment and figure out if your strategy is working. But you may not always have time for that. If somebody's running at you full bore, full tilt with a knife, you probably want to deliver multiple hits pretty quick to the center of mass, whatever that is for you, which is usually the chest. And the chest is usually our primary aiming point because it's the biggest target with the most vital organs. That is usually going to be where you aim. Not always. A classic one is the Mozambique drill. Now, I'm not super familiar with the history of the Mozambique drill, but it's been with us a long time. Kind of the reason for that is if the body shots aren't working, you move to the head. Remember, going back to what we talked about, that's the quickest way to stop somebody. What point are you going to realize that your body shots just aren't having the effect you would like them to have and move to the head? The Mozambique drill, for those that aren't familiar, 2 to the chest, 1 to the head. And that doesn't have to be a hard and fast rule, right? It could be 4 to the chest, 1 to the head. Could be 3 to the chest, 2 to the head, because headshot wasn't as good as it should have been and it skirted around the skull. That's the thing that happens. And you got to sink a second one in there. But body and head are generally your go-tos. Not always. There are other things to talk about. What got me thinking about this was pelvic girdle shots. This is something I've trained on, something I think you should probably train on. And I started thinking about that for an episode, and it spiraled into this whole thing because I thought, how do I get there? And this is getting there. Remember, center of mass. The largest mass that's safe to shoot at that's going to be effective. If the person's head is obscure, like they're not attacking you, they're attacking somebody else, and you don't have a shot at their head, they're wearing body armor, or you don't have a shot at their torso either. and their rear end is literally the only thing sticking out and the only thing you have a shot at, and they're killing somebody, you probably want to shoot that pelvis. Probably want to shoot that pelvic girdle. Also, the center of the most vital mass that you can see and that you can hit. I guess that you can hit is a better term, because if they're behind like a bush and you can't see it, you can still hit them, right? So the whole cover versus concealment thing, which you probably know if you're listening to this, but the center of the largest vital mass that you can hit, which is why I think it's important to train on something other than, after you get the basics down, just that B-27 target or the FBI cube target, whatever, where it's just a silhouette standing facing you. Because what if it's not, right? If they're halfway behind cover. And you probably don't want to aim for the center of the chest because you only have a very small area before you hit the cover if they're behind cover. Aim for the center of the chest that's exposed, right? You want to aim for the center of the area that's exposed. You would think that's common sense, but if people always train for center chest, center chest, center chest, and they don't ever shoot targets behind cover, targets that are partially obscure, what do you think they're going to do under stress? Where do you think they're going to aim? And there's nothing wrong with training and having a set of standards. You know, I advocate you shoot the FBI qual. I came up with the Armed Citizens Course of Fire. There's nothing wrong with training on standards, and for that, the silhouette target's probably the easiest standard and way to shoot. But don't only do that, right? Practice some targets behind cover. Practice, well, hopefully you shooting behind cover. But practice when you get a target where the person is facing the side. That puts the organs and stuff in a different area. You practice behind cover, and the answer is yes, really easily. Even if you only have those silhouette targets, you can just take a piece of cardboard and some cheap white or black spray paint and spray paint parts of the target. You know, so only the top half is exposed, only the bottom half is exposed, the left, the right, 45-degree angles. Right? It's not that hard. Not a difficult thing to do. You just take a piece of cardboard and paint part of the target. But aim for the center of the largest vital mass that you can hit, generally. How many rounds? That's entirely up to the situation. Really up to them. When are they going to stop? It can often be really hard to think complex thoughts under massive amounts of stress. So I'm going to keep it simple. You started shooting this person, hopefully for a very dire reason. Like a very drastic situation led you to shoot this human being. Are they still doing that thing? Whatever they were doing to cause you to shoot them in the first place, are they still doing it? If the answer is yes, then you keep shooting. If the answer is no, then you stop shooting. Right? There's no cut and dry. If you practice always drawing and double tapping, you draw and the guy puts his hands up and you double tap, guess what? There's a problem, right? Are they still doing the thing that caused you to shoot them? If so, you keep shooting. And if not, then you stop. And for that, I think you should train a variety of different drills. Again, getting one hit on target quickly. Getting multiple hits on target. Getting multiple rapid hits on target. Various shot angles. Again, various degrees of a target being behind cover and where you actually aim. It's a classic kind of thing in competition shooting. You got a bunch of like full-size targets and you have one where they painted the bottom half black. So simulating behind cover. And if you shoot the black, it doesn't count. And you'll see people, they're used to aiming center of chest. They aim center of chest on that one. If they go just a little bit low, then it's a miss. Practice those things. Again, the center of the largest vital mass that you can hit. Practice, again, different angles, like people standing sideways at various angles. Practice the different aiming points. Primarily torso. Generally, high center chest. Because high center chest is where most of the vital organs are. A high center chest, your primary aiming point. but also headshots and also pelvic shots, because that might be the shot that you have. I know this was a somber topic, but this is gunfighter life. It's not fluffy bunny life. It's a harsh reality of gunfighting, and maybe that's what I'll make a subtitle of the episode. Anyway, with that, your tactical tip of the day, you've probably heard the knife drill. And if you've been around tactical circles any length of time, you've probably heard the 21-foot rule. That's a gross, rough approximation. You want to get a more accurate picture of that. Whatever your normal carry setup is, your normal duty setup if you're a professional, or your normal carry setup if you're a concealed carrier, well-regulated citizen, you can do this safely. If one of your spry buddies, somebody with some celerity, safely, you have a man-sized target in front of you, and you have them just behind you, safely. Somebody yells go, or the buzzer goes off, the person starts running as fast as they can away from you, up range, not down range. Like, use your head. If you do something stupid, that's your fault. They run away from you and away from the target, like behind your back, away from you. Simultaneously, when the buzzer goes off, you shoot the target. When he hears you shoot, whatever number of times you've designated, once, twice, 3, 4 times, assuming they're good hits, when he hears you shoot whatever the determined number of shots are, he stops. You safely holster, then you look at that distance. You can measure that distance. That's your, it's about how long somebody's going to be able to cover before you get your gun out and shoot, right? Because that's how far they just covered before you got shots off. It's a little bit more realistic and germane to you. Tactical tip there. Your tactical verse of the day. This is from Revelation chapter 20. And they were judged, each according to his work. And if we look at Romans 2:6, KJV, who will render to every man according to his deeds. You see, you might fool a judge. You might fool a jury of 12. But remember, God knows all thoughts and intents of the heart. You don't fool God. You can't fool God. So make sure, if you're going to do something as dire, as drastic, as use deadly force, you had better be doing it for the right reasons at the right time. With that, thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.